Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Ben Maynard. For those of you that don't know me, for those of you that do know me, I'm still Ben Maynard. And this is the first of a number of live streams that I'm going to be doing over the course of 2023 because, you know what, I enjoy a live stream. I enjoy a live stream, and it's been such a long time since I'd last done this. I did it a little while ago, at the very beginning of the pandemic, with a guy called Jeff Cowhig, and we did a talk called Dreams of Future Teams, which went on for much longer than we anticipated, but we really enjoyed it. And I can't believe it's been years since I've done this type of thing. So here we are. We find ourselves beginning of a new year, and myself and my company Sheave and various guests are going to be touching on a number of topics over the coming months. And the first topic that I really wanted to focus on was actually something that came up in a conversation, or a number of conversations with people that have been on our IC Agile coaching course, which is I've got a job as an Agile coach and I'm super excited. It's a difficult market. I'm really happy I've got the position, but how do I start strong? How do I have a fantastic first day? And this was something that got me thinking, because I've had tens, I don't know, maybe I haven't had many engagements or jobs as a Gem Delau, but I've had quite a few over the years. When I was working at RBS, I was sent across the bank kind of to support various different teams and leaders and organizations. So I kind of got used to being the new person. I got used to going in there and not hitting the ground running, but making an impression. And so what I've put together are some tips for you all to take a look at today. I'm going to go through some slides. If you have anything you want to ask me or anything you want to kind of comment on, then you are welcome to just put a little message on LinkedIn. I can see Ben, give me a wave. Hey, Ben, solid name. Dieter, hello. Hello there. Hey, Dieter. And Jetsi, hello there, my friend. It's lovely to see some people there. So, no, you can tell I'm new to this live streaming thing because I'm going to spend all the time saying, "Oh, hi, Abby, great to see you," and I'm just going to saying hello to everyone, so you can totally stitch me up, and then I won't know. But what I'll do is I'll every now and again I will put a little thing up here so you can see the comments. Anyway, shall we get on with it? I think we should. Hello, LinkedIn user. So, how to start strong as an Agile coach is a brilliant question and not so easy answer. Now, I chose this. I chose this image because I kind of felt like the alien a lot of times. I was never quite in this situation having burger and fries with people, but you go into a situation and you're the new person. And if you're in an organization that's looking at going through an agile transition or wants to have more agile teams or whatever it may be, then you're going to walk in. You don't know who you're going to find. You don't know how much the people are going to like you. You don't even know how much they really want to kind of get involved in all this agile stuff. So you kind of feel like a bit of an alien. So that's why I chose that photo, because you're always going to feel like a bit of an alien, but there's things you can do to really impress. Now, there is this quote, and I've totally forgotten. And I did this little teaser for this talk last week. Totally didn't go back and look up where this came from. Maybe it was Harry Truman. When they said, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And that's really true. And making a bad first impression can take many, many weeks or months to get over, and I can think of the number of bad first impressions I've made is incalculable. I think I've missed so many opportunities in my life because I have been rubbish at making a great first impression over the years. But then on the same hand, I've had many people who have worked for me or with me alongside me and who've just made terrible first impressions on me, who I've ended up loving, but it took some time. It took some time. So what I think is important to remember is that we are going into organizations, whether agile coaches, professional coaches, whatever we are, if we're going in there and we're going to help someone, then we want to be successful. If we're successful, it means we can build momentum. And then the more we succeed, the more momentum we create. It's kind of like it's a systems dynamic of success to the successful. It feels good. But on the same terms, when we start failing, the tendency is to go in a downward spiral. And so what we want to avoid in those early days from that first instance is getting that downward spiral from the get-go. We do not want that. We do not want that. So it all begins then with that first real impression with your new colleagues. And some of us are very gifted, and these relationships happen continuously and effortlessly. And then we just walk in, we could be shopping and we leave with a best friend. Like, I love those. I know one person like that. She's phenomenal. Right. The rest of us have to work on it, and we may never reach our potential. So this little line down the bottom here is actually the boilerplate text that came with this presentation. I didn't design this presentation. I got it from Invato, but I liked it. And I like this quote, which is, your ship doesn't always come in. Sometimes you have to swim out to meet it. So if you think I'm going to go through these tips and it's just going to be simple, I'm already doing that, that's really easy, then you can just like log off. Because the things I'm going to share with you, they take a bit of effort. So I'm not saying that you should be absolutely all over all of them. I'm saying go through, listen to what I have to say, ask me some questions, and I'll do my best to ask them as we go along. But try and pick one or a bit of a couple just to have a go at using. Don't get totally wrapped up in trying to think you're going to have to apply them all. So the tips and techniques, of which there are 6. First of all, we're going to talk about system education. Right? So what does that mean? Why is that important? We're going to talk about what the hell is performance anyway. We're going to talk about being bold with transparency, the most overused word, I think, in the agile world, and kind of what it really means in this instance. And I'm going to make transparency useful again. I'm going to talk about courageous listening and curiosity, which I always think sounds quite snazzy. It's like, maybe there's a book about it. I'm not sure. But I think I might have made that one up. Speech, how we speak, our tone, our pace, and the effect that can have on making a good first impression. And then also about not being a show-off. So the most dangerous poison to a feeling of achievement is that feeling of achievement. That feeling of achievement, feeling that you're going to go in there and you've already accomplished and you're the finished product, and you're going to go in there and everything's going to run really smoothly. Like, that is poison, I think. It takes us off our guard. We forget to focus, so we forget to try things and always try and push things forward a little bit. So the antidote to that is just always thinking that what can be better done tomorrow. So look at some of these things as we go through, and you decide what you can do better tomorrow. Now, if you like what you're hearing, particular techniques, then do feel free just to put the name of the technique in the chat so I can kind of see how popular they are. If you don't like it, then put that as well, and make sure you put at the beginning that you don't like it. So what does this all boil down to? Well, in my mind, really everything we're going to talk about really does boil down to 2 things. 1, trust. That firm belief in the reliability or ability of someone is so important. And as an agile coach or scrum master or just a new employee somewhere, we need to work on building trust. If people don't trust us, we're going to find it very difficult to build any form of coaching or mentoring or teaching relationship. Trust is the foundation of everything. Without trust, things go very slowly. So we need to focus on building trust. And the partner of trust, the yin to its yang in my mind, is respect. In any form of coaching relationship, there has to be mutual trust and respect. And respect is really important. Now, you may be reading this and maybe your mind's going one of 2 different places. Perhaps you're thinking, okay, they need to respect me and they need to trust me. And that is true. But you need to trust and respect them too. Walking into an environment and looking around and saying, these people are useless. They need to listen to me. I'm going to tell them what to do. Sometimes that works for people, right? But I wouldn't advise it as an approach because it rarely works for everyone. And trust me, I've seen a lot of people really fall over themselves in this area. So trust and respect is as much about you giving it as it is about you trying to put it, as about receiving it. And trust and respect are the golden ingredients, the real key tenets of successful coaching relationships. And all of the tips I give are going to be to help you build that trust and respect. Now, as a caveat, all of the tips I'm also going to give are angled in a particular way, some more heavily than others. As well as being asked this question on our coaching course and our facilitation course, I also get asked, how do you impress or get the ear of or gain the trust and respect of senior leaders? Because people often what almost aspire to being involved with those kind of more senior upper echelons of an organization. So everything I'm going to be suggesting in some way, lightly or heavily, is geared towards getting you in, getting the senior person's ear, having you come across as someone that knows what they're talking about and perhaps is a shoulder to cry on or a coaching or a coach yet to have. Um, yeah, so Abby, I see your point there that many Scrum Masters fail due to their arrogance rather than taking a humble inquiry approach. Absolutely. And humble inquiry, we'll be making a guest appearance in this presentation later. Don't know why I said it like that. Okay. So for any coaching relationship, as I said, there needs to be mutual trust and respect. And for me, when we look at professional coaching and agile coaching, and it isn't done enough in agile coaching, this is all about the contract, not the how much you get paid per day or how much notice you're going to give or when they're allowed to fire you. We are talking about the contract which lays foundations and sets expectations between all parties involved in the coaching relationship. Now, in the professional and individual and team coaching world, contracting is a huge part of what it is that we look to lay out at the very beginning, and that's what builds a huge amount of trust and respect. And in the next month's live stream, we've got a couple of professional coaches coming on to talk about conflict, and I don't doubt the power of contracting will come into play when we talk about conflict. Now, in the agile world, all too often we just overlook this, or it's just very poorly done, and actually we're missing a trick. So what I would suggest is that do look up the idea of contracting. Do think about some of the things I'm going to go over and think about how it can apply to your contracting or not. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change my screen here a little bit um, because there's a little QR code on there. Now, hopefully that QR code will work for you. If not, the slides will be available at the end and we'll make them available so you can kind of scan that QR code, because what's at the end of that QR code is a sample contract. Now, it's not verbose, but it's a great starting point for you because it outlines what professional coaching is and isn't, but it also shows you how agile coaching differs. And it's a great thing. If you want to take it and rebrand it, let me know. I'll give you the original version and you can use that with on some of your engagements. Okay. Excuse me whilst I just play around with this. I was trying to see if I could drag that up, but I can't. Please bear with me, callers, whilst I just break the tool here. There we go. So, contracting important as a sample contract. You can get that at the end if you haven't got it already. So, system education. This is the first tip. A system is always designed for what it's achieving, whether you like it or not, and whether it's an explicit design or something that's evolved over time. The system, organization, team, whatever it is, it's designed for what it's there to achieve. And if we don't learn about the system that we are walking into, we do so at our peril. So, what do I mean by this? Well, what I found always works, or works in many organizations, and it all never fails to impress some of the more senior people, is showing I've done the legwork of understanding what their business is about and the landscape it is within. So what we're not talking about here is trying to boil the ocean, trying to understand every single facet of the business, going through their accounts, looking at their any press releases, going through the notes from the AGM. You can do those things, and I'd encourage you to do some of those things. But we're not talking about gaining this intricate knowledge of all of it. We never will. But what I am saying is it's getting your head around the organization as a whole and how the internal and external factors will be affecting prioritization decisions and will be affecting overall decision making. So that when you turn up on the first day, you better understand people's motivations. And it also accelerates the accuracy of your empathetic understanding. Now, what do I mean by accuracy of empathetic understanding? Well, hold on a second. So I just break this again. What do I remember? Accuracy of empathetic understanding. When we try and apply accurate empathetic understanding, we are trying to kind of be there in that hole with that person, understand what they're going through. And if we understand the bigger system that's at play and what things might be motivating some of those internal decisions, we're able to sit with them and really better understand just what it is that they're going through. So I think that really kind of getting a good handle on the system and the things that are affecting it, internal and external, can really help benefit. So what I'd recommend is do some research, look at their organizational purpose. Look if they're looking to make any acquisitions, or if they've recently made any acquisitions, or if there's a merger on the card. Now, those things may sound very businessy, but I really recommend that you look at that. All too often, people go into organizations not understanding that there's a bigger game at play. And so they may be working really hard to help one team to help one team perform, not realizing that the stuff they're delivering is in direct overlap or contradiction to an organization who they've just purchased, or an organization they are merging with, and the stuff they're delivering isn't going to be any valuable and isn't going to be of any value. There's no point doing it. So really get a grip on what's happening, what's on the cards, what's on the horizon. Look at their competition, understand who they're up against. Are they in the lead? Do they even care about being in the lead? Are they just not bothered by the competition? Really try and get your head around some of this, because it can be really, really useful. And one of the things which I don't think people really think about, and Abby, I can see if you put up there, but how are they funded? I remember asking a friend of mine this question when he said to me, well, I'm doing well in an interview, but I've just got a funny feeling about this organization. What type of questions might I have not thought of asking? I said, well, ask them how they're funding you. Because often money which is set into like an agile transformation or an agile transition, however you want to phrase it, it will end. And if you look at what's happening in the industry at the moment, you can see many budgets being decimated, and some of the first things that are going are people with agile roles. So find out where you're being funded from. Find out how they get their funding, because if they're funded by a venture capital firm, they're going to have pretty hard targets that they have to try and meet, which will really drive their decisions. If they're a very sales-focused organization and it's all about getting sales, then the way that you work with them will be very different. If it's a product-led company and they're using their product to discover what's being used, rather than having a sales force which is going out and selling stuff. So this is really critical information, I think. It can really help you have better conversations with senior leadership, but really help you understand how the team or teams that you are trying to support fit into that bigger puzzle. Now, performance. And what the hell is it? Now, you've got to get your head around what performance means. And there's a couple of factors to this, but you have to get your head around it. And it's fun, I would say. Maybe not daunting, but fun. And I think for too long in the agile world, performance has almost been a dirty word within some circles. Like, we're not supposed to help increase performance, or it's not about increasing performance. And I think it's just got a bad rap. If we go back through the annals of history and we look through coaching as it's developed, if there's one thing that coaches are there to do, is to increase performance. And I think that's reasonably unequivocal. If you're thinking, they're there to be a shoulder to cry on and help people through hard times, absolutely. And that generally falls to a counselor, psychotherapist, or a more trained professional in a particular area. Coaching has generally been about increasing performance. So as agile coaches, I would say we are there to help increase performance. And that is more than just facilitating a lovely retro. I think retros are great, but I mean, they're just a tiny piece of the puzzle. So first and foremost, when we're thinking about performance, I urge you to consider purpose. Right, so first of all, does that team have a purpose, something beyond the stuff that they create or the value that they generate profit-wise, that gears them towards improvement and gives them a reason for being? And does this purpose then contribute towards the larger organizational purpose? So going back to the retros thing, people will often say, the retros are getting really boring. What we need is a fancy new retro, or the team just don't care. We go for the retro week in, week out, or 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out, we go through that cycle and all these actions come up. It's not even in the Scrum guide anymore, but they've got to put it in the sprint backlog, and they just never want to improve. And I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And I know what I do. I'll go get a fancy new retrospective template. Like, wrong answer. Like, maybe they'll like it and it will gauge them a little bit, but I can, with a certain degree of confidence, suggest that maybe the problem isn't to do with how you're engaging them in the retrospective. It's because they lack a reason for improving. Right? They lack a reason for improving, and having a purpose is the key to giving people something bigger to reach for, giving them a reason to want to improve. So look and understand the team purpose and figure out who cares about the team's performance and who is actually responsible for increasing it. If it's you, fantastic, but the manager should also bear some of that burden. So really understand those two things as well. Who cares about the team's performance from a stakeholder perspective, and then who is actually responsible for it? And so with these two things, with understanding the team purpose or the lack thereof, and understanding who's responsible for it, there are three questions that I reckon you should experiment with. Number one, ask the teams and the stakeholders, what does the future need from this team? Okay, so what does the future need from this team? You will be surprised by the answers you get from this. Okay, it always shine a light on some very interesting areas, especially from the people you least expect it. And it orients people to then wanting to be getting better. Okay, we're not saying what's wrong with the team now. How can this team be less shit in the future? Excuse my language. We're saying, what does the future need from this team? Then with that brewing around in our minds, we're collecting that information, we can ask them, what value, we ask the team, what value do you add to those that you ultimately serve? And can anyone guess then what what a lot of the conversations then hang around in this question? Right? It isn't what value is. I don't know, Andy. And maybe the presentation did rewind 10 minutes. There's not a lot I can do about that, unfortunately. But you get to watch all the goodness again. What value do you add to those that you ultimately serve? Like, it's that ultimately part. It's actually having a conversation with a team about who they ultimately serve and understanding and helping them understand what value they add to it. Right? This helps us then begin to better understand the purpose. And then finally, I would say, and this is where we start to hit into that team coaching and the team as an entity, is saying, what can you as a team achieve together in adding this value that an individual can't? So what is the only thing that they can do, right, to add value, which they do together, that they can't do as individuals? Because what we're talking about here is team coaching, and we're talking about team performance. So on the first day on a new gig, or maybe even before it, try and get answers to some of these questions, explore it, and it will give you some ideas. As to where you can focus. Now, I think that maybe what happened for anyone that's experienced, like thinks about like rewound or anything, I think it's a quirk with where you're watching it from on LinkedIn. So I'll just crack on. So, performance, purpose. I would recommend this book. QR code there takes you to Amazon. This book has some of the largest piece of research done into team performance. I think it was 3,000 teams, maybe researched over a number of years. So if you actually want to understand some of the key things that really affect performance, that has been uh, scientifically and reasonably rigorously investigated, and this is a fantastic book. And one of the best things about this book is that when you read through it, it kind of really bolsters everything that the agile world has been saying. Because one of the key things it shows is that actually, if you want to increase performance, that having your team close to the people who they're ultimately serving, the point at which the value is released, right, does more to increase team performance than many other things. So this is a great book. I really recommend you check it out. Now, this tip: be bold with transparency. right? This means you're showing your imperfections a little bit. Because transparency is the most overused word, I think, in the agile world, and we can make it great again by being bold with it, but not being bold with it by getting people to look at sprint backlogs and product backlogs and yada yada yada. Right? I'm talking about for us, like practice what we preach a little bit here. So this quote here, I remember where this one came from. I love when things are transparent, free, and clear of all inhibition and judgment. This was Pharrell Williams, and I should really credit him. I'm sure he won't mind. So be bold with transparency. What do I mean by this? Well, I mean open the curtains on yourself. This is something that I've started doing. You're going to get a little cut down version of it because the full version is a bit more to it, and I'm yet to kind of make it easy to understand. But what I say is, first of all, get yourself an interactive whiteboard, Miro, mural, or something else. So it's something where you can create a little stand for yourself. Put on there your personal information and a photo. So maybe that you haven't met everyone in the organization. People might want to know who you are. People might want to know a little bit about you. So I would say put a photo of yourself in there, put your name and your job title, put a little bit about yourself, make it personal. Okay. So let people get to know you a little bit. We're like creating a little persona for ourselves here. I'd then say logistics. Let people know when you work and where you work. Give people your email, your phone number, and a Calendly link, perhaps, so that they can book time with you. And then, interestingly, I think most importantly, begin to evolve your idea about how you are going to work within that organization. For example, are you going to be teaching? Are you going to be teaching people because they need lots of teaching, or is it going to be coaching or mentoring? And maybe do a little write-up, explain the different stances of an agile coach. Put on there the ones that you think you're going to be most leaning into. Maybe request on there that if people would like to be taught something or mentored, that they ask you and say that I'd like some mentoring on this or coaching on this, or I'd like you to help to come and facilitate this, rather than just saying, can you come and do some agile coach stuff, or can you come and do some scrum master stuff here? All right. Really make clear how you work. So you make this little persona for yourself, so it makes it easy for people, right? It helps people trust you. And if you start sharing some personal information on there, just maybe some of your hobbies or some things that are a bit more real about you, perhaps that would also help to increase the respect. And then flip it. Like, spend some time with your team or your client or whoever you are going to be engaging with, and ask them, how do they want to learn? Understand their learning preferences. Right? Do they prefer remote versus in person? Do they prefer slides, or do they prefer activities? Like, begin to understand that. At the same time, if it isn't teaching going to be majoring on, ask them how they want to be coached or how they want to be mentored. Like, begin to get to an appreciation for how they want you to engage with them. Then, and most importantly, ask them how they want to receive feedback. I don't know if yeah, I won't go too far into it, but someone who might be listening to this now, if not, might watch the live stream. I remember they contacted me when I was, and this person I'm thinking of, he always mentions to me, like, you always mention things that sound like us on your podcast or something. I'm like, oh, I don't mean to. This time I mean to. He contacted me, and I was at my little boy swimming class with my wife, and the message said, I've got some feedback from you. Can we have a quick chat from you? I've got some feedback for you. Can we have a quick chat? So I rang him up, and he said, this is like 5 months after we'd done this kind of contracting session like this. He said, I remember when we did that session, you said if there was feedback you wanted to know, like, as soon as possible. So there's been a bit of feedback. Would you mind if I told you what it is? And I was like, do you know what? I said, thank you so much. Thank you so much for keeping that cycle time, for providing me with feedback short. And thank you for just contacting me, right? I say, yeah, absolutely. Let's get the feedback. And I was so pleased he did, because that would have been weighing on my mind. If it would have been left for too long, then maybe I couldn't have had the conversations I needed to have to help figure out exactly what the root of the issue was. So make sure people know how you want feedback and how they want feedback from you. And also, how do they want to be updated? So I've got a Miro board for the first part of an engagement with a client. Every week we'd go back to the Miro board and I'd have a little overview of what had happened that week, what my blockers were and what I needed assistance with. And we kept the updates focused around this Miro board. The same Miro board that had all this information, same Miro board that had all of my information. So courageous listening and curiosity. So what I'm talking about here is really putting yourself out there to be a fantastic listener. I'm just yes, active listening, absolutely. But I'm talking about being courageous with it because sometimes it can be quite nerve wracking. Sometimes that we don't do ourselves any favors when we're in a situation and we really have to listen. Hi, Darren. Good to see you here. Um, so, what I'm suggesting here, courageous curiosity and listening, is that actually the one thing we do first of all is reflect upon our self talk. That self talk, that running commentary we have in our minds, which not all of us have, I found out, but I think a lot of us do. That is what's going to hinder our curiosity and stop us from delving deeper. That little voice, sometimes it's an ally, sometimes it's an enemy. But what we need to be doing as coaches, as good humans, if we're going to courageously listen and really apply some curiosity, is to find ways to subdue that self talk. Okay, find ways to manage it, understand it, filter it. I'm not saying don't have it, but what I'm saying is sometimes our self talk doesn't help us. And do you know what? If we can filter it and then just kind of put it in the bucket of, I don't care about that really, that's not useful, that is a superpower. That really is a superpower. So we need to work on our managing our self-talk and we need to contract. Always be contracting. Right? What we want to do, we're setting expectations on both sides. So if we are if we're courageously listening and we're being very quiet and we're really getting into it, and we feel want to be courageous with our curiosity, and it isn't something that we've agreed that we're going to kind of delve into, or we haven't said that we're going to kind of poke into those particular type of areas with the coachee or with the team, then a short bit of contracting. Like, you have said this, and it's really sparked my curiosity. Would you mind if we just explored down that alley for a little while? And would you mind if I asked you some questions just to help me understand it better? If they say no, I'd rather not. Great. You've contracted. They said no. You move on. If they say yes, you've contracted. They said yes. You've got a new contract for that point in time, and then you delve a bit deeper. But this isn't about taking people by surprise. This isn't about asking people deep and like powerful questions when they're not expecting it, when you haven't contracted for it. That isn't ethical. It is about knowing when you feel is a good time to ask that question and contracting before you do, if the relationship hasn't got that contract in place at that point in time. So what we need to do then, when we're courageously listening and implying courageous curiosity, is make it all about them, inquire about their points of views, priorities, and goals, and don't be a Judge Judy, right? Accept people without judgment. Okay? We are saying just listen and take it and just try and think systemically. And in systems thinking, we'll always say that no, there isn't a good or bad 99% of the time. Everyone's trying their best. So what is it about this person trying their best that my self-talk is leading me to want to judge them? Let me be curious about that. Let me kind of filter and bucket up that bit of self-talk and then say, okay, right, so like, what you're saying is really interesting. And it's not something that I would have thought of in that way. Could you give me some more information about that? Yeah. And spend the time and go deeper. And here it is, as promised, Humble Inquiry, a brilliant book. It taught me more about how to listen without judgment, and probably made me a better human more than nearly any other book, maybe other than Mindset by Carol Dweck. QR code there, take you to Amazon. If you want to get the book, it's a fantastic book. Really, really is. I can't recommend it highly enough. Okay, speech. How we speak, our tone and our pace will influence how people perceive us. So If you're nervous, and I think that maybe apart from those few super confident slash super arrogant people out there who just go in and they own it, and we'll talk about those in a little bit, a lot of us get nervous. And that could be a friend or it could be a foe. But basically, when we get nervous, we can often speak too quickly. There's also this horrible habit in organizations of like feeling like we have to book people's time in 30-minute increments. And then as a result, sometimes we feel obliged to fill it up. So I want us to avoid this pain. Right? And what I invite you to do is plan to make use of these tips. When you're meeting someone for the first time, then set and communicate a time box. Like I've got 50. Do you have 15 minutes you can spare? Because what I'm interested in is just understanding a bit more about where you're coming from, where you're coming from in relation to this, or what's been happening historically of this. Or do you have 10 minutes where we can like set that time box? A scarcity breeds innovation. That short time box gives you energy. It also makes it safe because there's a clear expectation of when it's going to end. Right? Sometimes we're really boring and people just want to leave, and we need to accept that. Sometimes they're really boring and we just want to leave, and we need to accept that. So give yourself a nice short time box until you build some of that relationship. I would also recommend speaking slowly and asking how, when, and why. So take pauses, right, be heard, and come across considered. There is no harm in speaking slowly. There's no harm in leaving pauses. You leave a pause, people aren't going to think that you're stuck for what to say. The first natural assumption with people, good people, is that you're thinking. So give yourself time to think. Give others time to think. And ask questions like how and when and why, which enable you to kind of embrace some of that courageous curiosity. Now, I gather I'm probably speaking quite quick because I got one eye on the time and also on how many slides are left. So we're going to pick up the pace. Ask for assistance. When you're meeting up with this person for the first time, ask for assistance, ask for a favor, right? Show some humility, give non-threatening requests, and it helps to build rapport. It also shows that you're not trying to be a plus one, which we'll talk about later. I would also say that then don't be afraid then of disagreeing, of a little bit of dissent, but do it in a way which validates the person. So rather than saying that's a load of poppycock, or that's a load of rubbish, or that's a load of shit, right? Which of course you would never say. You may feel the self-talk may say it, but it wouldn't come out. You say something like, okay, yeah, okay, and then brush it off or try and contradict. Validate. Say to them, that's really interesting. Like, could you help me understand that a bit more? Like I never really considered it from that angle before. I never would have thought of doing that. Like to talk to me about your thought process leading up to it. So disagree and validate. Right? These 4 tips are reasonably simple little things you can pick up and try. And these 4 tips come from this book. Okay, so it's not all about me. And this is a chap who worked for the FBI, who in the line of duty found it as very important for him to build trust quickly. So he wrote a book about it. So there's a QR code there. I'd really recommend checking out the book. There's those tips and quite a few more. Don't be a show-off. Right? Telling everyone you can outswim a great white, right, won't impress people. Right? Like, well done. It's quite the achievement. You know, I couldn't outswim, well, not even like a stick floating down the river, to be honest with you. But so maybe I'm not the person to be impressed. But going in there and being a show off and telling everyone how amazing you are won't make you build trust and respect. Probably quite the opposite. So what we're talking about here, what I'm talking about here, and what I recommend you think about is this idea of being a zero. So Chris Hadfield was an astronaut. He went to space, did a bit of showing off of a guitar, if I remember rightly. But he also gave us some advice when he came back. He was explaining that if you're going to work with a group of people to try and be a zero. Now, what that means is not being a -1. So a -1 is somebody who walks into an environment. You can close your eyes if you wish, and you can See if you can relate this to anything in your own personal experience where you're convinced you got it figured out. You don't listen, you're unaware of your blind spots, i.e., if we take a really obvious agile one, it's all about Scrum, Kanban's rubbish, Scrum, 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 all about Kanban, Scrum's rubbish, Kanban, 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 like those blind spots. Um, I just can't talk to senior people. Yeah, but you could do, you could do. Yeah, but then when you start doing those things, when you start avoiding senior people or just pushing Scrum, you can't easily take that feedback, right? Because you're convinced you got it figured out. And minus ones, and I've been a minus one, hold my hand up, um, don't make a big impact. And that's not what you want to do on your first day in a new gig. Being a plus one, actually, on the face of it, you're like, well, okay, maybe that's quite interesting. Right? Because what we're saying, if you're a plus one, is that you add value at every turn. You're not in it for self promotion. You're always pushing the limit of what's possible. You know their environment limitations well. And so if you go in there and you're going to be, I'm going to add so much value, I'm going to plus one it to the max, and you go in there and you take over and you do things, try and do things better than everyone. You don't leave space for anyone else. And then very quickly, everyone thinks that you're a bit of a wally and you are coming across as a minus one. Because you're going in and you're either telling everyone or trying to show everyone how good you are. And plus ones end up being minus ones. What we're asking and what I recommend that you do is think about being a zero. Be competent and efficient, learn quickly through observation and questions, be reliable and be really good at what you do. Right? Make space for others to be excellent and help others be excellent. And in turn, they will help you succeed. So what does zero do? Right, learns from everything. All right, integrates themselves without being disruptive beyond the agreed disruption boundaries. So if you've contracted and they want a bit of disruption and they're inviting you in, brilliant, go ahead and do it. But make sure you understand the level of disruption they are asking you, or you've agreed that you can create, and integrate yourselves within those boundaries of disruption. How does being a zero sound? Well, kind, compassionate, honest, and curious. Loads of questions, like a good human being. And how does it feel? Wow. How does it feel being a zero? Thirsty for really contextual information, that delving deeper. Like it's linking back to so much of what we've covered already. They're pathetic, sometimes a little bit uncomfortable, right? But they're always trying to give back in some way. So what we're talking about here is on that first day, don't go in all guns blazing. Like, don't go in just trying to impress everyone. In interviews, generally speaking, you're plus one on it, right? But when you get there, just try and relax, right? Aim to be a zero and let people figure out how good you are. And do you know what? If they can't figure out how good you are and you really are good, then maybe that just isn't the gig for you right now. And the book, An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth, is so I just can't believe I left that title like that. Is it, I hear it's a very good book. I haven't read it myself. I've just cheated and read excerpts and people writing about being a zero. That's where I learned about it. It was mentioned to me years ago. I think by a guy called Prayesh. So thank you, Prayesh, if you're listening. And there's a QR code for the book. And Chris Hadfield, he's a star, man. So that covers most of what I wanted to cover. And I'm going to hang around as this ends to kind of stream in questions. I just want to give you some stuff. I want to give you some stuff. So first bit of stuff. We've got a new talk coming up on the 21st of February or 2 p.m., which is navigating conflict with confidence. We have got two people who I'm quite honored to be sharing the stage with. Christina Hutchinson, someone that I worked with years ago, someone I've known for a long time, incredibly accomplished coach, and a mentor and tutor of mine, Paul Barber, author of a fantastic book about team performance. We're going to be trying to bring together the worlds of agile, individual, and team coaching and munch them all together and talk about the importance of dealing with conflict with confidence. And for Paul, this is a very deep-rooted topic, and he will explain all when we hit the live stream next month. So this will be promoted out via the Sheave LinkedIn and by my own personal LinkedIn. So do share that with everyone you can think of who'd be interested in learning more about conflict. If you want the slides I've been through, this talk will have been recorded and will be available on YouTube, if nowhere else, I believe. If you want the slides for this talk, there's a QR code there. Scan that and you can get them, and I'll do my best to get the link out to the same folder as well. We've got, in Sheave, we've got a ton of courses. Right? Sheave.co.uk. There's a 20% code, 20% off it all, exclamation mark. 0 points for originality, where you can get yourself booked in any one of our courses. Our certified professional coaching course is actually sold out. Our team facilitator is close to selling out, as is our less practitioner courses, getting close to it. So we are, our courses do sell very well because they are just banging courses. Me and the one and only John Spruce deliver a lot of these together. So do go to the Sheave website, sheave.co.uk, and check out some of those and use that code. And that's me. In black and white, which is how I prefer to lead life. But yeah, you kind of probably already know that. Yeah, so keep in touch. There's the website. You can look me up on my link tree. There's the email address. I'm happy to hang around and answer any questions via the chat function that you have. I don't have to go anywhere for a few moments. So thank you, Tabitha. Thank you for your endorsement there. It's awesome to have you on. And Tabitha, I'm looking forward to seeing you on our Agile Coaching Mentoring as well, starting in February. So yeah, any questions, please feel free to stream them in. That's such an old person thing to say, isn't it? It's like if I was going to go and say, like, oh, I'm going to go and do the live stream. That's what an old person would say, to do the live stream. So if you have any questions, do feel free just to tap them into the chat. If not, I'll just stand here. I'll just sit here, avoid the sunlight that's coming in. If anyone is starting a new Agile coaching job and would like some support or assistance or advice, do feel free to add a comment onto this event. Or to any of the posts that we post regularly, then we're more than happy to help out if any problems that you might have over LinkedIn. Or if your problem needs a bit more attention, then head to sheave.co.uk and you can book half an hour of my time. It's time that suits us both when we have a conversation. Thank you, everyone, for your kind comments. It's very kind. You can see on the stream that it's branded Restream. It's a fantastic platform that I use. I like it quite a lot, so maybe I'll pay to get rid of the watermark. What do people do at the end of a live stream? One from Matthew. How do you engage when you're not particularly wanted? No time given for a chat. So how do you engage with people who don't want you there? It's a hard one. It is a hard one, Matthew. I mean, how do you do that? I'm not sure if you can. You know, it's a sad fact of life. If they don't want you there, then the only thing I found has worked, now I think about it, is to get some time with them, pick a topic that they are really passionate about, ask them a question, and then see how long I can say nothing for. Practice my coaching skills, ask open questions, and let them offload as much as possible. I think there is, in most people, a direct correlation between the time you spend really actively and empathetically listening to someone and how much then they trust and respect you as a consequence. So I would say that is not a bad technique. Also, if you can find ways to spend time with them for a coffee or for lunch and talk about other stuff, and that can help break the ice a little bit. But it's a hard one, Matthew. I don't think there is a silver bullet, but there was a guy I know called Tom Cassar who once told me that he had a special dance that he did that really made people like him more. So I can see Tom's asking me to do a little dance. To be honest with you, I'm not as good as Tom, so I will wait for Tom to upload a video of him doing a special impress a stakeholder dance at some point in the future. Okay. Do you know what? This is the first live stream I've ever done for a long time, and just seeing all the thank yous come in, and seeing how many people were engaged in this, it's been wonderful. It really has been. As much as kind of talking to myself into a screen is wonderful, I've enjoyed it, and seeing your comments come back and your thanks means a whole heap to me. So thank you very much. Don't forget to follow Sheev on LinkedIn. And on YouTube as well, if you wish. Check out some of my videos, and you'll be made aware of all future events that are coming up on our courses and a few blog posts that I've been toiling away on. I've actually got a decent blog post, say decently long blog post I've been working on for the last couple of days on this topic. So yeah, do make sure you follow or subscribe to our newsletter, which will post a link to that into the, well, Sheaf will be posting a link to sign up to our newsletter soon so that you can be made aware of the blog posts when they come out. Okay, so I'm going to end the stream here. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I look forward to seeing you all again in February. Stay safe, and whilst you're waiting for February 21st, check out the Less Matters podcast for more of my dulcet tones. Thank you very much, everyone.